Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy. Waiting to see if I'm going to be able to get a hold of Matty B today. But we're going to go ahead and get started, ready to run with the first week of the NFL season. So the Steelers are starting to get their roster set. And the big move that came, a 5-year deal for Cam Heyward. And that's a big deal because that's going to keep him in Pittsburgh until he is, 36, I believe. So that's going to be worth, $75.1 million. He's going to be in Pittsburgh till the age of 36, yeah. So deal got done Sunday night. People were thinking that he was going to be leaving Pittsburgh. To be honest, it's hard to follow with the coronavirus and not having some of the preseason games on what is going to happen. And so I'm glad that they got a deal done. We were waiting to see on what was going to happen with Leonard Fournette, if Pittsburgh was going to make a run at him. Maybe they did. We don't know. He ended up signing with Tampa Bay, which gives Tampa Bay, I think they're one of the sleeper teams for the year. I mean, it's hard to be a sleeper whenever you have Tom Brady on the team. But in terms of their defense, getting young guys and getting them locked up, and then bringing in Tom Brady with what they had, and then not only bringing or giving him probably the best wide receiver tandem that he's ever had, or at least one of them, they went ahead and got Gronkowski out of retirement, and now he's got Fournette. I know the Jags got rid of him, and it's hard to tell what the reasoning was behind that deal and why they went ahead and made the cut. But they got a ton of weapons for Tom Brady. So they made their moves. They're going all in for this year. And no one knows how this year is going to go. It's very tough going through the lines on week 1 whenever we haven't had any preseason football to see how some of those second, third wide receiver jobs are going to shake out across the league. You have some of the secondary movements. Some of them are pretty young. Like I think the Vikings, known for their defense, are going to be breaking in a couple of young defensive backs. How's that going to work out for them? We don't know. We haven't even seen them on the field yet. So the Steelers open up going to New York, and they're going to play as 5.5-point favorites. They have the over-under at 47.5. And if I'm being honest, it's going to be tough to see a lot of points scored this opening week. And I'm going to get into it a little bit later when we get into the college football stuff that did happen, but they haven't been seeing live game film. And if you've ever watched preseason week 1, which a lot of people don't, but I usually do, just to start to get into the mood for football, I will say a lot of those games are very sloppy. Some teams come in and they're able to click right away, but like you have Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay with a whole bunch of other offensive guys. Most likely, they're not going to click. You have Ben Roethlisberger coming back in Pittsburgh after he missed almost the entire year. It's going to be very hard for him to just return to form. So I could see the Pittsburgh coming out and scoring points, but if I'm going to gamble on that game, I would be hitting the under. And I don't know, the 5.5-point favorites is pretty big. The Giants have, hopefully for them, they have everyone healthy, but you're giving Daniel Jones coming in for his second year. Steelers have tape on him, and normally you have, and the quarterbacks go through their sophomore slump. Is he going to have that? We don't know. It's yet to be seen, but I would be pretty happy as a Pittsburgh guy betting on that first game just because they haven't had any reps. They haven't had any live reps coming into the game. And so just looking around the league, kicking it off Thursday night, the Texans and the Chiefs, which should be a great game. But I'll be honest, I think you're going to see a lot of sloppy football. I don't think you're going to come into week 1 and you're going to see a lot of people out there just clicking. Maybe a team like the Chiefs coming off a Super Bowl victory, they can keep it going and just come out on fire. You could also see the same thing on defense, though. Some defenses haven't worked together, don't have the calls down, don't have the adjustments what are they going to do to put them into that position? You really don't have that. And this is the first time it's ever happened, at least in my lifetime. I don't know if there's been any other ones where I know they've had like the strike shortened seasons and things, but that was really young when those happened. I've never had an NFL season where you're coming into this week 1 totally blind. And so just looking at some of the gambling lines, that's what I would be looking at going into this opening week. Who's going to come out and actually be well coached? Because you have some younger coaches, some teams that are usually undisciplined. Most likely it's going to be very similar this year whenever they come out and try to get things clicking without any game reps. So if you watch college football, you'll know what I mean, because when they came out, a lot of teams were just sloppy. And the teams that had that type of live game practice, you could definitely tell. Another negative for the Steelers, or I guess the main negative for the Steelers, David DeCastro isn't expected to play. So that's Pro Bowl guard, not expected to play. Not really sure why they're saying he's out, but it's undisclosed at this point from August 28th. So he's probably had at least a week rest or healing time if it is a serious injury, but a simulated game practice, we don't know if that was like a non-contact injury or what. Not getting a lot of word on it right now, but I'm hoping for his quick recovery that he can come back and try to get things clicking on that offensive line for the Steelers, because I was hoping coming into week 1, that would be one of their strong points. And so that's a huge blow whenever you're coming in hoping to have veteran guys get people in the right positions. But we'll see how it goes. I'm confident going in that opening week that the Steelers are going to go ahead and get the win. But I'm looking at the big key. Everyone's going to be watching it. What is Ben Roethlisberger going to do? Is the offense going to be able to buy him some time with the running game? Or is he going to come out there and they're going to be relying on him to throw the ball and put them in situations? I don't know if the Giants have enough to really push the Steelers. So even if Ben comes out rusty, I could see it being a low-scoring game. And as long as Ben's able to get into the groove, he should be able to take over this game and start the season off right for the Steelers. So that's my prediction. And I'm thinking that they're going to go ahead and just, I don't even know if they're going to hopefully make a run for their division. But it's a good start to the season because you have the Giants, you're on the road. I don't think they're having fans there. So it's not going to be like a crazy atmosphere. It's going to be something interesting to see if they're going to be able to get just in the mood and ready to rock for the rest of the season. And so that's what I'm going to be looking for. The other big matchup, like I said, I'm going to be watching Tampa Bay. They're going to New Orleans to play the Saints. You have Drew Brees and Tom Brady, two of the oldest quarterbacks in the league, battling it out. Drew Brees had his own off-the-field issues this summer, so we'll have to see how that locker room is going in. And then Tom Brady, another new face. That's going to be one of the 4 o'clock games, 4:25 on Sunday. So I'm hoping that that's a national game because that's a game that everyone should want to see on Sunday and get a good feel for what should be, I think, if you're just being honest, that should be the two teams that are going to battle it out for the NFC South. You have the Saints who have been there. Carolina's going through a big transition right now with a new head coach, and I know Matt Rule has a great job done a great job in his past of building college programs up. I just don't think he's going to be able to make that switch in year one. So I think Carolina does some good things, but they're not going to push for the division. You're going to have Tampa Bay, which I said, they went all in this year. They're ready to win. They signed the guys. They're really hoping that they can make a run this year, potentially next year, and then when Tom's gone, that's going to be it. Same with the Saints. They're still riding Drew Brees, and I know they made some moves with quarterbacks trying to get things set for whenever he's done, but realistically, they're waiting to make that other run. Atlanta would be the other team, but I'm still not sure if Matt Ryan can rebound. Like, they had that devastating loss in the Super Bowl, and then that offense the next year, whenever Shanahan went to the 49ers, their offensive coordinator, they kind of fell apart. And they haven't been as dynamic, and then the defense had issues. So I don't think they're going to be a threat. I think in the South, the NFC South, that's who you're going to get. You're going to get the Buccaneers, and you're going to get the Saints. And those are going to be your two teams battling out, and we get to watch them in Week 1. Other storylines for Week 1 out west, the 49ers, are they going to rebound and make another run? Or are they going to fall like so many other Super Bowl teams in the past have, where you make a run, you lose the Super Bowl after leading, and then you have a complete drop-off the next year? So everyone's watching Garoppolo. Is he going to be one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL? Hasn't put up the best numbers, but he's been consistent and just had solid numbers whenever he's the starting quarterback. They're playing the Cardinals, a young team that's dynamic, bringing in weapons on offense. They have Larry Fitzgerald again for one more year, hopefully, at least. So let's see what happens, because that's going to be a tale of two different teams. Shanahan went to the 49ers to try to get that dynamic offensive going. But with Garoppolo, they're still more of a power pro team. And then the Cardinals are just opening it up, trying to bring that college spread from the Big 12, high scoring, lack of defense games to the league. I don't know if they're going to be able to ever make that transition into something that's big time, but we're going to go ahead and see if he's able to do that. And I got Matt calling in now. But if the Cardinals are going to make that run, they got to win games like this 49ers game in Week 1. Because if they don't ever make that transition where they're going to be going and getting ready for the big time and making a push, and even trying, not even just for the Cardinals, but for that offensive philosophy, if people want to see the spread offense in the NFL, you got to have teams that are running it successfully, almost as a mirror of what is being run in college. Because if you look at what Andy Reid's doing in Kansas City, that's not the college spread. He's doing like a West Coast version of just a passing offense. And so you have that where they're just airing the ball out. That's more of an evolution. That's not taking what some of those like RPOs and stuff that are built into the college game now. Not a lot of offensive teams are really doing that in the NFL. They kind of do it as a one-off. It reminds me of whenever all the teams got really hot there. What year was that? It was like 2013 when everyone was trying the Wildcat. Like the Dolphins had it first, and they were like, okay, let's see what happens. We're going to run in. And they got some success with it, and then like every other team had one Wildcat package, and then it just kind of fell off. So if you don't have the athletes, you're not going to be able to run that style. And so we'll see going into that if they're going to be able to make those trends, because if they are, you're going to see a different breed of quarterbacks getting drafted, because a lot of them, they just haven't translated. You have the running quarterbacks, they're still not finding their groove. That's where you have like guys like Cam Newton that have that dynamic capability. He wasn't signed. People weren't even signing him. A lot of the other ones, RG3, like they're backups for other teams right now. So the offense hasn't stuck, but just getting caught up, Matt, going through Week 1 games. Anything that stands out for you?
Not really anything in particular. I am curious to see, in particular, how the Rams transition, getting away from Gurley going to the Falcons. I do want to see how if they continue to have the success offensively that they've had recently, or if it starts to die off, because McVay was on fire. He had the Super Bowl appearance, and it just seemed like teams started to catch up. I think one of the points that you were making was that everything is such a copycat league that it's really quick that if you have the momentum, if you're not evolving year to year, people are going to tee off on what you're doing well, and it's going to put you in a really tough position.
And that's a great point, bringing up the Rams, because I was just making that same prediction with the 49ers. You have a team that was brought in, get to the Super Bowl, heartbreaking loss, close game. I mean, the 49ers had to lead for the bulk of the game. I know the Rams, it was a lot closer. I don't know if they had the lead the whole time, but that was like a one-score game. They ended up losing to the Patriots. They had a big fall off, and they're both in the same division. So are you going to see that? It's a perfect position for the Cardinals to just make that jump. If they're going to have that dynamic offense, because you have those dinosaur offenses, like Garoppolo's not going to be able to move the ball all over you. He's just not. He's more of a possession quarterback that's going to have to rely on his weapons. I mean, for a big bulk of those 49ers playoffs wins last year, they were relying heavily on the run and run packages, where the Cardinals, I mean, they're just going to spread it out. And if they catch fire, I know the Niners are built on defense. That Rams team was built on defense. At some point, I mean, that division's going to be a juggernaut, I think. I still think that West Division, because I'm not even talking about the Seahawks with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, like that's still a solid team out there. So I think that's going to be one of the toughest divisions this year across the league. The other one I talked about already, Matt, was the NFC South. You brought up Gurley. I didn't even mention him. I just don't think Atlanta's able to, when they lost Shanahan, they lost something on that offense.
Yes.
Is Gurley going to be able to make that up, do you think?
I don't know. I want to say yes, because there's so many weapons on that Atlanta team. I mean, when you have Ridley and you have Julio and you go down through the list of the athletes that they have, offensively, it's not as big of a concern. Part of it is, did they do enough to improve their defense? Because what's hurt them since their Super Bowl year was that the defense, like, it collapsed in the Super Bowl, and then it just fell right off the face of the universe for the rest of until present. So if the defense can't get any stops, it doesn't matter what the offense has going on. They're still struggling. Like a lot of those games, they end up being like 42-35 or something like that. They're these high scoring games that they never actually end up doing things, and it actually hurts the offense because they get down, and then they have to start driving the ball down the field. They have to start throwing more. That leads to more interceptions and blowouts. And
that's where I think we're going to see this first week. Because my prediction is you're going to have sloppy teams, no preseason. Like, no amount of practice is going to get you ready. So it's not like some teams played last week and you're going to have a weird opening week where some teams are ready. Like, I think you're just going to have teams that have been together with consistency and coaching. They're going to look all right. And some of these other teams, it's going to be just a weird, like blown coverages, like just poor offensive possessions, turnovers. Like, you're going to see some sloppy play. So for the people that are excited and thinking, oh great, finally I get to watch some football, like, you're going to be watching preseason level football this first week. Like, I don't care if the guys are pros. Just look back. Remember when like Le'Veon Bell was coming back and he's like, yeah, I'm working out. I'm going to come back. I'm going to be on fire. Then he came out and he was like 3 steps behind everyone. Except it's not just only one guy. It's the entire team that's going to be like that. So, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a sloppy week. I'm looking at the under. If I'm being honest, I'm going to look at the lines, and if they're going to be high, like the Steelers ones at 47.5, like, do you think Ben Roethlisberger is going to come out and just start slinging the ball and scoring points?
Yes. You saw those videos. You saw those montages of him throwing.
We saw the montage where it didn't even show the actual pass. So they could have left his hand, been a complete duck, and then they just cut that part out and just had some other guy throw it in there for the rest. We don't know. So, I mean, Daniel Jones, I'm not expecting him to go out there and throw the ball around. Who do you think wins?
I don't know. The under.
That's lame. I already picked the Steelers.
Of course it's Pittsburgh.
They're 5.5 point favorites. I don't know if you looked at the lines before the show.
No, I didn't. But everyone's healthy. With as many guys that they have on the defense, they should win games just on their defense. It should bring back memories of like 2005, where Ben didn't have to do a whole lot. He just had to make sure that he didn't screw it up. He didn't give the game away.
It'll be something like 17-13. I don't know if they covered. I wouldn't cover in that scenario, but I don't think they hit the over. Like, I would be shocked if teams are just running down. But again, they're not going to have fans there, to my knowledge, not in New York. And so what's the atmosphere going to be like? That's going to be another thing that people don't know, because a lot of the offense and defensive stuff, I think offenses are going to have a little bit of an advantage with this, because like whenever they would play normally with loud crowds, they couldn't hear signals. Now you're going to be able to hear everything. Maybe it will help the defense if they're listening and they start to hear some of the calls and they can pick up on it. But then you have to kind of have like that head guy on the defense. And I don't even know if like teams really have someone like that, because not every team does. Maybe Pittsburgh does. We'll see what happens. But any other games stand out for you this week?
I am excited to get back into the swing of the NFL season, just to see how things are different, because when you look at some of the college games over the weekend, a lot of it you were just seeing, with the exception of the Naval Academy, you had a lot of just 2x2, 3x1 zone read. Like, it was like pretty much everyone just running these like carbon copy schemes. There wasn't a whole lot of innovation, I guess.
Well, I'm going to get into that college stuff because I got some stuff just on Navy. Let me see if I missed anything else. I think we hit the injuries for Pittsburgh, some of their deals. Some other moves. I talked about Fournette. But the other one, Clowney, signing with the Titans. I don't even know if that's going to move the needle, because the Titans are one team that I'm not sure is going to, like, I just don't know if they're going to be able to make a run. I don't have a read on them. And they're playing the Broncos week 1. I don't think the Broncos are a strong team. So I don't think we get any answers on them. But that's another division where I think it's wide open. The winner of that division, like, where are they going to go? I don't know. Probably nowhere. But I think the Titans are going to be in a good spot. So they're trying to make moves. They think that they're close. I'm just not sure if I like their long-term quarterback solution, but we'll see what happens.
But I think like that's one of those deals where if they get consistent quarterback play, they're a really good team, because they have the ground game, they have the defensive pieces, and Clowney was successful when he was running that Vrabel type defense in Houston. So he signs a 1-year deal, and it's pad his stats and then try to cash in one last time in free agency, I think, is the name of the game for him.
Yeah, and that's true. Get it going and see what happens. I think there was one more game, the Raiders and the Panthers. I talked about the Panthers being unknown, but really the Raiders, what are they going to do? Because they're the one team,
and they're going to run the ball.
Yeah, are they going to be able to take that next step? We've been talking about Gruden for how many years now? I feel bad not mentioning him in our week 1 show. But this is the year. I'm not solid on the Broncos. The Chargers, who knows what that offense is going to look like. And then you have the Raiders right there. What are they going to do? I don't know. Can they make that jump?
Yes.
They can get the wild card. Like that's all they have to do. I know they're competing with the Chiefs, but if they're able to get success against the Chiefs coming off a Super Bowl win, then you know that they have the talent and the scheme that they're ready to compete with them. I just don't know if they're ready to make that jump.
Well, they have that. They have their running back now. They have their vertical threat receiver. It looks like he's following the exact same blueprint that he was doing when he was in Tampa. He's acquiring. He has the pieces there. He's just. I think with the trades that looked bad initially, I think that you may actually see things starting to come into fruition this year.
Well, that's definitely what they need. They need to do that. They need to make that jump. You could say the same thing with the Browns, because the Browns have all these weapons and second-year quarterback. Are they going to be able to make that move? And they're playing the Ravens. Is Lamar Jackson going to be legit this year? Because he's starting to turn into the Peyton Manning of the league, where you don't win any playoff games, so people just don't take you serious. I know Peyton was winning playoff games, but choking in the big ones. And Lamar Jackson hasn't even got there yet. So, a lot of questions. But we'll have some answers next week when we get back into the NFL stuff, because we'll have some actual numbers. We haven't had any preseason stuff, so we don't know. Kicking into the NHL, just wanted to celebrate real quick that the Flyers were eliminated. I think the Islanders are just going to get. I don't even know. They went ahead, but I think they ended up losing that game last night. Am I right? And then you have, Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay, they look like they're going to go on. Like that was a massacre. I didn't think New York came back, but you have Dallas and Vegas in the West. There's a chance right now. The Penguins are shopping Murray around, and Fleury could be coming back. But surprisingly, Colorado and Toronto are really interested in Murray. Those are the two teams that keep coming up. And Colorado just lost to Dallas in a 7-game series. So they must be really hedging their bets that they can get Murray before, like pre-injury. Like once he had those injuries, he's never bounced back. Maybe a change of scenery would be good for both teams.
Yeah.
Because I really think that whenever you get in that scheme, you're trying to bounce back and you have a ton of pressure here. You're going to go to another team. I mean, Toronto would probably be the better situation for him just because Colorado seems to be on the brink of making a deep run. They're already in the second round. He's going to go out there. He's going to get extra pressure. Is Colorado a big hockey town? I don't know about anymore. It's not the 90s anymore. So maybe, but I would hope. I want to see him bounce back. Fleury just didn't get a good shake right now with Vegas. You can tell that he's upset. And so they're definitely going to probably move him. And if Pittsburgh wants to get it done, I could see them getting it done. So that's all I had on the hockey thing. I really think that Tampa Bay is going to win the Cup. I know there's 2 rounds left, but they've looked good. If you watch that game, like they scored almost immediately last night. The final score was 8-2.
Ooh.
So I watched that because we'll get into the college one in a second. The Pirates, just bringing up baseball just randomly because I saw a weird stat that I sent Matt. The Pirates haven't won a playoff series since 1979. So you think like, oh, but they had that one series against the Braves where like that hit and then the run at the plate couldn't get the throw in. No, the playoffs didn't have like wild cards or all these weird playing games. So that was like the championship series back in the 90s. They haven't won. Their last one was a World Series in 1979. Haven't won a playoff anything. Not even a wild card, Matt. It's mind-boggling.
No, it's not. They've been stinking for so long.
Yeah, but you would think that early 90s they get one, 80s maybe. I could see like recently, we know the truth. They're battling the Reds. The Reds are the next closest team, 1995. So almost like 20 years difference. Every other team within the last 20 years has been successful in the playoffs. Pirates, before my birth, way before my birth, was their last one. So I wanted to bring that tidbit in. It's tough to talk baseball whenever the team is just so bad. Like we talk a little bit about Detroit, but they're not looking any better. So not really anything big in baseball this year to even get me excited. Some teams are already pretty much locked just based on the games and how they're already playing. Because some of the numbers are so bad. I think I saw a stat where at one point last week, there were only 4 teams with winning records in the NL. That's how bad baseball's been, Matt. And so I know, people are thinking, that's only in the NL. Let's count them right now. Oh, no, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 now. Then 2 teams at 500, including your Cardinals. But just head scratching. Pirates at 13 wins though, Matt. What I say, 18? They're getting closer. They could break my prediction. At one point, they were on track for 12? So they beat that. It was that sweep of the Brewers that really did them. So, anything you got for baseball or hockey?
Just as far as like baseball, odd and end, like I'd flip through by a game. The weird background things, I don't understand why they can't just start letting some people into their games. I think that's the whole like either cutout of people or the screens of people like WWE's doing. I'm not a fan. Like, just have them there. Just be there.
I hate them. Some teams, Matt, are letting you buy them. You can pay.
I'm surprised Bob Nutting isn't doing it.
You have to have people willing to buy, Matt. It would be funny. What he should have did is just put cutouts of himself everywhere. That would have been a funny troll. That's if I was him. That's what I would have done. Because then people are tuning in and they're just like, oh, I hate that face. Like, why'd you do that? But the screens I hate because I don't want to be seeing other screens. I think basketball was doing it, WWE. It's like, I don't want to see people moving on other screens because to me, that gets me sick. Like just seeing like other screens or like different things like that. I don't know. It's disorienting. The cardboard cutouts I just think are dumb. At that point, like whatever. What was the team? Like South Korea, they had blow up dolls. Much funnier. Like go that route. Do mannequins. An entire thing of mannequins would be even funnier. Like have people draw mustaches on them and stuff. Or heck, you can even just get fake mustaches because they're like real people. Have them dressed up in like your team outfits. It would be much better, much more expensive. But again, if you're having people pay anyway, why not pay? They get to dress up the mannequin and maybe you can like print out a picture of their face and just put it over them. Or like make scarecrows or something. Be creative. Cardboard cutouts are it's just awkward because it's like two-dimensional. Same with the TV or the other screen. You have a bunch of other screens and stuff. Everything's flat. It doesn't give that depth because the cameras are going to be moving. Even in basketball, they're following the action, so it's just weird. It's weird to watch. I wasn't even, like basketball, they're in a whole other situation. I don't even know if their TV ratings came back. They're starting to get some good series going. Because they had the same thing that I predicted for the NFL. I knew the NBA, the reason they did that schedule, like they didn't go right into the things is because of sloppy basketball. They're still having teams play sloppy basketball. And so there are good points of it where it's just tough to watch. Like you turn on a game, it's like 70 to like 60 in like the fourth quarter. It's like, what am I watching? Why am I doing this? It's like watching a high school basketball game. So I don't even know what they could do to fix that other than they shouldn't have took that big of a break. Like you said, like at some point you just have to start letting fans in. I mean, the big one, Milwaukee, they got eliminated by Miami for that same reason. So now you're going to have Miami play potentially Boston because they're up 3-2 on Toronto. Is Boston the best team in the East? No. So are they going to get in and it's just going to be a sloppy finals? Potentially. Like, is LeBron just going to be able to back into the finals and then get an easy victory? So it's all going to be worth it for him. I don't know. We'll see. I was going to try to see if their ratings, it's bad whenever I look this up and the first thing it says, the ratings grow internationally. So like that means that they're not growing in the United States. They're probably still really bad. If that's the headline that they're putting out there, that people are watching internationally, because they never report on those numbers for any sport. So that's all I have to tell you. I don't even need to click on it. It just says, NBA TV ratings in really big trouble under that. So it's just because like you said, Matt, it's weird to watch. You don't have the fans. I'm wondering if football is going to have the same issue. Because I don't know, the college football numbers aren't going to be out yet. Just because I'll look them up real quick before we get into college football. But that's the issue that I've had, and that was one of the things I was going to bring up at the end of the show. You're having people pay to be a part of it by like giving them a cardboard cutout or whatever you're doing, like letting them be a screen for the NBA or like for WWE. It's just weird because you don't have that fan connection. And then like the WWE issues, they weren't even watching it. So they're just watching it live on television. And like, I don't know how you're going to bounce back from that. At some point, like you said, let the fans go. Let them go. Bring in ridiculous things like let them carry cardboard cutouts. Let them have like whatever they're going to bring in, terrible towels, throw them around, and actually get some actual fan movement and some sound. That's what I want to see. And at this point, it's been going on for like, what, a month? Live sports, a month or two? Some teams should really jump in and try to do it. I think Iowa State, they said they were going to have fans, and then they got major pushback. I don't know if it was from the state or what, but then their goal was to just have 25,000 in, which, all right, come on, that's a joke. If your stadium holds like 60,000 and your limited attendance is 25,000, there's not going to be that much space in between the people. That's like a little under half. So instead of having like a Beaver Stadium, you get like this much seat, you have this much seat.
Well, see, that's a good thing. That was one of the teams that I thought would benefit from coronavirus. Dan Brown, you can actually pay for a full seat.
Yeah, if you went to Penn State and they did that, they tried to pull that, let 50,000 people in, like you would just have a normal seat. There'd be no distancing. So, and then if it's cold, then you don't even have that. It'd just be bad. But getting into college. Actually, before we get into that, how was your scrimmage on Saturday? Since we didn't hit on the beginning of the show. I don't want to forget about it.
The scrimmage, all in all, went much better than it has in the past. We were on the road. The team handled the travel situation well, which was a little bit unique because we had to. It was almost like we had to prepare for like a youth league or junior high, where we came like dressed with our game pants and stuff, so it minimized the amount of time that we were in the locker room. And then after the game, the kids were able to shower, and we had grab-and-go lunches and headed back. But as far as the game itself, I thought we played really well. I was very impressed. Usually, when it comes to scrimmages, just like with we talk about preseason NFL or college games. Usually, that's sloppy, and there's stuff that there's a lot of mistakes being made. But when I looked at the film, I was kind of like. I took a step back and I said to my line coach, I don't think this is really as bad as what it could have been. Like, the kids seemed to understand where they were supposed to be. We didn't have any issues as far as not knowing where to line up and where to go. Like, the pass routes were pretty consistent. It's like a couple plays here or there that were little things that you clean up, as opposed to major, like, oh, I don't know how they're not understanding this type situations. It's
going to be something where you just need the game reps. Same thing I was saying for the NFL. I mean, high school, you have kids that probably, a lot of them, they might not have played other sports, or they might not have any experience doing like team things like that. And you have to actually think and move at the same time. And it's tough for some kids to actually get that at a young age. Because high schoolers, they're still developing. So going through that awkward puberty growth and then having to move athletically and think on your feet, it's very tough if you haven't played any other sports. That's why I'm a big proponent of going and playing multiple sports when you're a kid. If you're into sports, play as many as you want, because then your body will get used to it and able to give you that game speed that some people just seem to be lacking. And, some guys are just so athletic, like you see them in the NFL every time. Every year it seems like there's a guy coming out of nowhere that hasn't played any sport until he was 18. But he's going to be raw and need to be developed, and that's exactly what they're talking about. So in high school, if you're not that gifted, you need to develop that faster. You can do that by playing any other sport.
Absolutely. And I think the other part to it is that with a small school like ours, you can't afford the luxury of really doing a lot of aggressive inter-squad scrimmages and heavy contact stuff, because if you do, then you run the risk of having your potential starters getting knocked out. And thankfully, we did have a good number of injuries this camp, but a lot of them were younger players and people that are relatively new to football. So hopefully we get those guys healed up and get back. But I was kind of surprised this year, given the participation that we had, that there was still a good number of guys that we had injured for our game.
So with that change, are you playing your first game this weekend, or do you have another scrimmage scheduled?
No, Friday night we are on the road at Moshannon Valley. So big time matchup. We got to go out and get that first win. We know we're going to be outsized, but we got to be focused and ready to go.
Well, good luck with that. Got a big start. I know this year is going to be, or at least the prep is going to be a mess. Because there are some people, I was talking to some other coaches, their teams they didn't do anything. Like during the first couple weeks, and then with the unknowns. And then it just made me think, like, how would your team be prepared? But then, Navy played BYU on Monday night. And I sent you some quotes from Navy, Matt. So to prepare for their game, just so people that aren't aware. So if you're like, why is he talking about like random high school coaches? Some coaches, like Navy, they decided not to have any contact at practice. So they weren't practicing at all as a team because they thought that would put kids at the risk of getting coronavirus. But if you were testing everybody and you knew your team was negative, you're not going to get sick out of nowhere. Like, it's not just like the disease is going to come flying through. Like, someone on your team had to be contagious. So instead, and this is what annoys me, because they decided that it wasn't safe for them to practice, Matt, with hitting and tackling and doing offensive. Like, they never had the offense and defensive line match up one time because they thought that they could get sick from that. But instead, they let a team from Utah, BYU, fly all the way over for a matchup. Because, like, I mean, you can get sick on your own team, but let's just let outsiders come in. They can hit us for the first time. And boy, could you tell. Navy looked like dog shit. Like, that was like what I watched of course I only watched 2 games this weekend, and I turned it off because I knew the story coming in, and I knew that Navy was just going to look out of sorts, but that was bad. Like BYU, they weren't even trying to really run the score up, but you could just tell, and that's what I said for the NFL, you might be in for some surprises like that. Some young coaches, some young quarterbacks, some young teams, some guys not taking it seriously. Because there's been rumors even around colleges where some teams with the postponements and even like the Big Ten, players are now starting to just not want to practice. It's been coming out because they don't know. They don't think they're going to play at all. Like, games are getting pushed back. And so you start to have that doubt in your locker room. Guess what? You're going to get navied. Because I have some quotes here. They said, the offensive line will never go head to head with the starting defensive line. That's true for the second and third units, that even players that likely would never get into games or would get into games. If you're going to go 2-on-2, offensive line versus defensive line, and one of them would test positive, that means all 4 of those guys are out. So instead, they're just going to go ahead and do one-on-one pass drills to get ready for the season. 1 offensive lineman and 1 defensive lineman, that's going to be their practice buddy. And so the entire workout, like, you could only have contact with 1 guy, just in case you would get sick, and then that way they were only having 2 guys not show up. So instead of doing like tests like anyone else where you test, the people are on campus, they're not going anywhere else because nothing's open. And then what are you doing? Instead, they had this weird like mini system where they weren't having the entire team practice together. And guess what? They got destroyed. They said on offense, people were expecting them to come out and start throwing the ball around because, Matt, they couldn't even practice their offensive like triple option because that was too many people in too close of space. So their coach was trying to get them to only run 7-on-7 practice for offensive practice. That's how ridiculous it was. I don't know if you've heard this.
No.
But that's why they looked like that. And so for people to watch the game and they're thinking like, oh, college football's back. I usually watch the big Monday night Labor Day game. So I go on and I turn it on, and what do I see? Navy getting embarrassed. Like, people think Navy, they run the option. Their games are usually always close. Sometimes they get outclassed. But, wow. On the other hand, Army, the same division, independent, military, didn't do any of that. They actually look good. That was the other game I watched. I mean, they destroyed whatever team that they played. I can't even remember who it was. Let's get it up real quick, because I think the team that they played had already had a week in. Didn't they play? Oh, they played Middle Tennessee. Which team had a weekend that looked bad? I don't know. Can't remember off the top of my head. Because I did check in on a couple, but like, you just had complete blowouts. Marshall crushed Eastern Kentucky, 59-0. Army, 42-0. BYU, 55, Navy, 3. Like, a lot of the games were just lopsided, and I think it was because of the practice stuff. Some teams were just so paranoid about it. And at that point, you can't tell me that it was in your athlete's best interest to play college football then. Like, why not just postpone? If you're going to come out and not practice and not have your team prepared, why play at all? Why play? They should have just had the entire, like, some teams just opt in and said, like, because, like, I know Navy, they're not in a conference. They're independent. Same with Army. I believe so. So they're independent. They don't have, like, a conference that's going to say, hey, we're going to set up these rules. The Big 12 put in some rules that I think are just going to ruin their season. So I don't know if you saw their rules that they put out, Matt, but TCU already had to cancel because they gave them a guideline. If a certain number of each position tests positive and you don't have like a backup, like it was like 7 offensive linemen or something. So if you don't have 7 offensive linemen ready to go, you have to cancel your game. Basically as a forfeit. But they didn't say that it was a forfeit. They just said it was a safety violation or whatever, which is basically a forfeit. Like you would lose the game. So TCU, and they had one game built into their schedule. So TCU had to cancel. And they said, they came out later, it leaked. I don't think they were actually allowed to say, the Big 12 said you can't tell people this is why. But it leaked out that that's why. They didn't have enough guys that were positive from one position group. And each group had like a different thing. Like quarterback, surprisingly, was one. Because it's always good to just go into a game with one quarterback, Matt, because they never get hurt. I mean, look at Maryland. They've never played with just like a random wide receiver quarterback. Never.
Well, see, they proved that it can be done. Just throw your wide receiver out there, running back. It's fine.
If you only recruit high school quarterbacks, Matt, then you always have a quarterback ready.
And you can just plug him right in there. And he'll know all the reads.
Well, so then this is what happened then. Oklahoma came out and said, hey, we're not going to share our test results during the season. Well, no, duh. Because they don't want to have to postpone and get canceled, Matt. It's crazy. This is going to be like the most bizarre year. At least the NFL, when I'm watching that, I know it's going to be consistent. If the front office, teams that you think have solid front offices and everyone knows them, Steelers, Packers, like you can think, which team never looks like a shit show? Like, oh, okay. Like they have their stuff together from the top all the way down. They're probably going to have a good year this year. Like, let's just be honest. Because some of those other teams, Bengals, Browns, I mean, you look at
because of coronavirus, Dallas and Cleveland might be sleepers because typically they have all the Bengals too. They always have all these guys that are out committing crimes. They had to stay home during quarantine. They may actually be ready to go.
Matt, the whole organization doesn't take stuff serious. So then they're going to have the same issues. They're going to have people out doing whatever. Not doing, like what was the team that had the one guy was at the Seahawks? They had the guy try to sneak a girl into like their camp. Cut immediately. If that was the Bengals, do you think they would have did that? No. They'd have been like, oh, sorry, son. That's warning number 1. Like, we're going to have to have a talk with coach. But some teams, like, they're no nonsense. That's it. And they're going to be in a better situation this year. So like, college football, it's the same thing. Like Lincoln Riley said, oh, it's a disadvantage if we start telling people who are sick. Well, yeah, because like I said, tests are going to run behind. So by the time they say that they found out, the game's already going to be played. So they're not going to let you know if you have just like a random number where they say, okay, so they said that Oklahoma, they had 6 new positive tests. What if that was like we've said, Florida State, when their test came out, everyone knew it was the entire wide receiver group. because all the receivers were out complaining about it. No other position group complained about it. So everyone with a brain could just look at that and say, oh, wide receivers, they definitely got it. So I think they said they had one guy from a position, it was like a random position group. Florida State has one guy that doesn't test positive in a position group. Very easy to know that that was the wide receivers. So could they have played without wide receivers? Yes. You would have seen them maybe try to bring out a triple option or something. I don't know. To throw a bunch of tight ends out there. But they could have played. But if that was their offensive line, that's a no-go. They would have to what? Cancel? I don't even know.
No,
so we're going to see things like that.
Because they really don't have an offensive line to begin with.
Well, Oklahoma, they had 6 tests. I would take a guess that that's going to be from one position group. Which one? We'll never know now. We'll find out in December.
Not quarterbacks.
They don't have 6 on their team. I mean, that's what it's going to be. I mean, you almost have to split up. You have to do the Navy thing with just your quarterbacks. They go out and you only play 101. You can't talk to other quarterbacks just because. We can't lose that position. But the other positions, so Riley came out and said he would be surprised if they were have to postpone their first game. Like, what do you mean you would be surprised? You either know the results or you don't. But you're not releasing them, so you're not going to get postponed. Very simple. Which is just I think it's just bad look for the school. Because if you're an athlete, like I said, everyone was talking about how is the Big Ten going to get negatively recruited against? All you have to do as a coach or like a parent, just say like, look, your son can go to Oklahoma. They're not even going to tell you if your kid could get sick. He said it right there. He doesn't even know. Like, how would your head coach not know? And Oklahoma, it's not like they're recruiting like gangbusters anyway. Hey. Like if I'm Tom Herman at Texas, I'm taking the opposite stance. And I'm going to use that negatively recruit, and I'm going to negatively recruit the hell out of Oklahoma. Because I'm going to say, like, look, your kid could go to him. I mean, he already takes a bunch of random transfers, chokes on the big stage. Like, what's the difference? Like, do you want your son playing with him? And then negative recruiting starts. Because they've already said that it started for some schools for that same thing. What was the team? Was it Georgia? They had the Wake Forest transfer at quarterback. He just decided randomly not to play. So, like, that's a bad look for Georgia. Like, why would your guy come in? He was named the starter, or they thought he was going to be named the starter if he wasn't yet. And then he says, it's not safe enough here. Negatively recruit him. I'm sure Nick Saban would be like, look, we don't have that issue. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. It's going to be crazy, but that's my week 1 college football breakdown, Matt. Some teams just did it for the paycheck, if we're being honest. It wasn't good football. I didn't have fun watching it. Like, yes, I didn't want to see a beatdown.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. It was embarrassing.
You did.
Some games are closer, some games are better, but like I said, I didn't have a lot of time to watch. Plus, I don't understand the TV networks. They're complaining about ratings being down because I did look at it here. Kentucky Derby. Well, actually, first off, I tried to look for the NBA ratings. Guess what? Did they release them? No. This is what they put out. That they had a highlight video that garnered more than 1.8 million views on Twitter. What? What does that have to do with their TV ratings when I look that up? That means that they're poor and that they're not going to be able to promote them like they normally would. So the Kentucky Derby, on the other hand, they dropped almost 50%. This is the lowest Kentucky Derby rating, and I bring this up for an important reason. They got a 4.8, 8.3 million viewers. It was the most watched sporting event since the NFL draft. And that was their worst number since they started to track it in 2001 on Sports Media Watch by like half. The other lowest before that was 7.6, and they got a 4.8. And before that, when basketball came back, they were getting like a 1 point something. So guess what? That's not it. So for the entire year, Even the NBA All-Star game only got a 4.1. That was the only basketball rating to crack a 4.0. All year was the thing. And basketball playoffs haven't done it. Daytona 500 did, and then, of course, football for 2020. There are a bunch of football games that broke it. But, yikes. Yikes. You were the only sport on for a bit. Or at least coming back.
Yeah.
So, if you think I'm just, like, exaggerating or I'm not going to say the numbers because they actually look good, like, no. They're bad. And the one thing that annoyed me was, like, these networks are saying, our numbers are bad, we can't do this. CBS had the game, the Army game on. They put it on CBS Sports Network, and they had to get that SEC money, so they showed a replay of a SEC game from last year. SEC didn't play this week. Why don't you just say, screw you?
But it just means more.
And let's put on the real game. ABC did the same thing. Like, they had paid programming on. They just got, like, a bunch of people selling ShamWow while they put all their college football games on ESPN. I know they want people to pay for ESPN, but guess what? Now your ratings look like trash, and how are you going to get advertisers to pay for that? It's their own doing. Like, they have to realize at some point, hey, we're not promoting any of this. No one's watching anything because no one cares. And every time we put something on, it's a 55-3 beatdown, and everyone turns it off. So that's my final thoughts. Do you have anything else in college football?
Nope.
I mean, you got ACC. We might as well talk that to end the show then. The big game, Syracuse at North Carolina, kicking it off at noon. Mac Brown getting ready. Team from New York. New York has all those travel restrictions. Guess what, baby? They're off. It's football season. We don't care. Steelers are coming to town. I know that's technically New Jersey that they play in, but they have all that other stuff. It mattered for a few months, but not when college football's back. Duke is playing at Notre Dame. Notre Dame had their own issues. Is this everyone or is this just the top 25? I know NC State got postponed. I don't know if any other ACC games did. Florida State plays Georgia Tech.
That's a must-win game.
Florida State has a line at 12.5.
Must win.
If they get killed, what are your thoughts?
Fire everyone. Fire the president. Fire the mascot. Fire everyone. They have. Honestly, it's for Norvell. If he can win that first game and he can get some positive momentum going, I think that I like the stuff that I'm seeing from the way that the players are reacting, and he's in a tough spot because there's a lot of guys that are on the roster from the previous staffs that had more of an entitled mentality. So he has an uphill battle, and it seems like he's pushing through some of it and challenging guys to step into more leadership roles, which is something that I think, not just from the player standpoint, but from their life perspective, is going to make them better human beings, and I'm all for that.
So life champions, the Tennessee model.
5-star hearts, baby.
Well, see, it is only Tuesday, the 8th, and we've already had 4 games postponed. SMU and TCU, Louisiana Tech and Baylor, Marshall and East Carolina, Florida International and UCF. So, is this going to be a trend? Because if half your games are postponed, it's not even half for the first opening week. It's considered week 2, but most teams haven't played. Like the Big 12's starting to play. The ACC's starting to play. I don't think the SEC's playing yet. But this is going to be a big first test to see, are they going to get games in? And how are the teams going to travel back and see if it's going to mess up games next week? Because like I said, they didn't build in, like TCU, I said, they had already complained about it because they only had 1 week built in. So now if they reschedule this game, they can't cancel any other ones. They have to forfeit them based on the new Big 12 rules. And so that's why Lincoln Riley is just not going to talk about it.
There you go.
I mean, probably the HIPAA violation stuff. It makes a ton of sense for him not to say anything.
That's right. You don't have coronavirus if you don't get tested.
For the last thing, the Big Ten, there's been a ton of debates online, and I've seen stuff where people are thinking, oh, some Big Ten teams, they're voting. Some teams want to play. Some teams don't. There was a letter written today by some politicians from the state. It looks like Lee Chatfield from the Michigan House of Representatives had a letter signed by people from Iowa, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Most of the Big Ten schools to try to get the schools to go ahead and play. They said that the vote, they keep going back and forth on this. Now there's a vote. They did a thing. But what they don't understand is that was the president's. But the thing that really shocks me and that annoys me, the presidents voted to postpone because it wasn't safe for football, but yet they're opening their campuses to try to let all these students come in. And then they're like trying to shut down like graduate school work and all kind of other stuff. So it's like really weird. Like, why would I be on their side if they're just going to be doing shady things up there? Like, if you're going to say it's not safe for the athletes to be there, then how about you just start going remote like Michigan State did? Like, I have to give them credit. They're walking the walk. They said that it wasn't safe and they're going to go all remote a couple weeks ago. Guess what? Fine. Go ahead. Don't have football then. I mean, if you want to have football, I mean, look at what the ACC's doing. They had teams go to school. Kids went home. Athletes stayed. And now they're going to try to play. So if Michigan State said, hey, we don't have our kids here. We already have it set up online. We might be able to give them a contained environment. Maybe we can't have football in October like they want to do. Then great. But all these other schools that are like complaining about it, you're going to have a ton of students starting like this week or last week. And now what? It's just going to push the start back no matter what. There's no way they're going to start in October like people are wanting them to do. They have petitions about it. They're going to do it. If you can't have your kids safe on campus, how are you going to keep your athletes safe? Like, you just can't put a ton of different people and then tell your athletes, like, what? Oh, you're in a bubble like the NBA. You can't go out and get pizza now. Like, you're not paying them. So what are you going to do? I've seen some, like I said, there's already been reports where some athletes are getting together and saying, like, they don't want to practice anymore. Because why are we practicing? Like, if you're a senior and they're going to tell you you're not going to get to play, you're not getting paid, all that's doing is going to hurt your schoolwork. Why are you there? Like, they're going to honor your scholarship no matter what. You might as well just opt out and then just do whatever. So if they want to do a strike, like, that's what they just need to do. All the players just need to walk out, and then I think that then you would see some schools start to panic. Because right now, they're trying to, like, it seems like they're just trying to stay in the middle where if there is a vaccine, like I had said, I thought their intent the entire time from my perspective is that they canceled because they were hoping for that vaccine so that they could start January 1st and have full stadiums to get their money back. Because you're talking about schools with over 100,000 people going to games. It's not like the ACC, like Pitt, where there's no one there. So coronavirus game, doesn't matter. You couldn't tell. Show a highlight from 2016, show a highlight from 2020, it's same stadium for Pitt. But you're going to have, like, Ohio State and Penn State, they're going to have 100,000 people there paying. Like, they're going to try to put it off. But now that keeps getting pushed back or whatever, now they don't know what to do. But they can't let their athletes leave because then they're not going to be ready to go whenever the money cannon starts shooting off. So it's a bad look. I mean, like, you have schools like just canceling, like Iowa, they're canceling all their Olympic sports, trying to make it seem like it's football. But realistically, that's not a big loss of money. Like, you could just stop a renovation project and put it on hold for one of your football facilities that costs much more than your Olympic sports. Just say flat out that you don't want Olympic sports anymore because it's too much work. Too many staff members that you don't want to have to maintain, because that's honestly what it is. So that's my last thoughts. I know I went over, but you got anything else?
No, I just, the more I see what the President Trump's willing to give the Big Ten the rapid test that they need to be able to get back into it, it's like it just feels like they're just trying to play both sides, and they're watching everybody else getting back into the swing of things and being into the season and playing games. And it's like, just get in, commit in, or opt out. No one cares either way. But this, like, we're going to be real quick to be the ones to opt out, and then, well, maybe we'll play at Thanksgiving, maybe we'll play in October, maybe we'll play whenever we want to play. It's just like, it's a bad look. Just figure out what you want to do. Quit just making decisions as the wind blows, and commit to it. If you're done, you're done.
And that's what annoys me, just seeing like fellow future alums, just they're going to be hung out to dry. Because I've already seen it. I've already had family members that went out to college, bought an apartment because the school said, yo, we're going to be good. The next day, after signing a lease, they close. Like, it's just a flat out lie. You can't tell me that it's not safe for football, but yet you're going to open campus. And then what? Once it starts spreading,
open season on all that they send all the videos. I saw at least 4 of them that there's different schools where people are out of bars, they're not wearing masks, they're not social distancing. You're going right down through the list of everything that you're not supposed to do, and they're doing it. So,
Matt, I've already seen it at Michigan where people were submitting photos to like the student center of parties, and they said that technically they follow coronavirus guidelines because they're off campus, which is just a joke. And so I'll call them out on that because, like I said, you're putting the Michigan family at risk when you're doing stupid shit like that. You're going to make a decision that's going to affect all these other kids out there that are one day going to be alums. So 2 years from now, whenever they get that first phone call and they say, hey, are you going to be willing to donate to school? I just want them to think, like, when these people are saying no, remove me from your list, just think back why. Like, they're asking you to do remote or hybrid. They wanted that call earlier. Like, you could say for football, like, have them opt in. If these kids want to play, have them opt in. Are you letting people work at grocery stores in your town? Are you letting the convenience stores on campus that are campus run open? Yes. How is that any different? They're going to come into more contact with people than athletes. So you can't tell me the one's safe and the other one's not. And so that's where I'm looking at it. If the kids want to play, just from a sports perspective, you can't say that it's not safe for them, but it's going to be safe for them. And I honestly think the only reason they canceled it is they just postponed it was because they didn't want to play games without fans in the stands. That's what it's looking like. They didn't want the money to just stop because not all those schools get TV contract. They're going to get the TV money no matter what when they play. Because like I said, no one's watching sports on TV. If you want to get a big TV weekend, you put Ohio State, Michigan on. You put Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Easy, millions of viewers. Like, that would just put everything back up. ABC would have like 13 views of it, like on their playoff things. They're like, here's a booth. Here's like 3 other coaches that are retired. They're talking about it in whatever webcam. You can like follow us on Twitter, like all this stuff. Like, they would be 100% for it. So that's my thing. Just don't play like, oh, it's just not safe. And then you're showing me all these other things that are happening on campus that don't even follow the guidelines. It's just frustrating.
And all that tells me is that the administrators are not trusting the coaches and players to make the right decisions. They're people that aren't involved are trying to meddle into stuff that they have no idea what's actually happening, and they need to get their head in the game.
Oh, well, here we go. Navy and Temple moved their game from September 26th to October 10th because Philadelphia has different restrictions and they won't be ready by then. So, I mean, you're just going to be pushing some of these games back. That was from earlier today. I didn't see it. I mean, Navy, they need the extra practice. That's it. I know it went a little bit longer because I started earlier without Matt, but anything else you got?
That's it. Go Bulldogs.
Good luck this weekend. Go Steelers. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.